Hi there, everyone. Hopefully you noticed that this Webmontag will be held in English. If not, so sorry. And no, we will translate everything. So if you have anything, any problems understanding the talk or something like that, just come to the team after the talk or in the break and talk to them. So maybe they will connect you to the speakers. So let's begin. To everyone, WMFRE, or join, anything else like mentioning the team account or something like that. If you have questions, just post them on Twitter. We will monitor the streams and take a look to port your questions to the speakers. So after that one, of course, we will have some more Webmontags in the next future. So this is the program for the rest of the year. So if you want to enjoy, or if you enjoy this one, you maybe enjoy the next one too. They will be held in German again, so no problem. If you want to participate on the next Webmontag, we have a call for papers out, so if you have an interesting talk or something like that you want to show, just contact us and we will get in touch with you. So next time you will probably be on stage. Of course, the Webmontag will not be possible without our sponsors. We also have some small goodies in the back of the room, so if you want to join for some small USB devices or something like that, just take a look. We also have a little bit jobs and the events should be in the launch. I haven't seen them today, but I'm pretty sure they are there. And of course, if you want to need a ride for today, you can get Uber. So just use the --14 promo code and you get your 20 euros discount on the first ride. So if you're unsure if you want to stay longer and maybe have some beer and don't want to drive, that's probably a good option. Of course, we also have our Bluebee available, so if you used this in the past, you can just check in with the Bluebee. Otherwise, you can use the QR codes to get the app from the stores and sign in over here. If you have any trouble with that, just contact our team. So, that's it from my side so far. We have a lot of interesting talks upcoming. I would like to hand over to the first talk for today. It's about the difference you probably have noticed if you surf the web a little. If you surf to Eastern Asian websites, you will notice they look a little bit different from the ones you probably know from German websites or something like that. They are all a little bit more colorful and, let's say more fancy. So we have Mayen over here. She will hold a small talk about the difference in the Eastern and Western web designs. And I think should be pretty amazing to see the difference and maybe get some background information about that. So enjoy the stage with Mayen. Have fun.
Thanks, Ben. Hello. Hi there, I'm Mayen Escusa. I am an art director at the full-service digital agency Triple Sense Reply, where we provide web solutions for both German and international clients. A little bit on my background first. I'm born to Filipino-American parents. I was raised in Japan. I went to American school. At 17, I moved to the US, where I pursued a bachelor's degree in computer science with multimedia programming and design. And there I collected some years of experience at companies like Target Media, North by Northwest, Zappos.com, before moving to Germany in 2009. My international experience allows me to bridge the gap between Western European, US web design, and East Asian web design. You probably wonder why that's important today, but in our ever-increasing global world, aided by the internet usage, it's going to be a more prevalent thing to see websites being done for emerging markets. So today, I would like to help you understand those differences by first getting a basic scope of what web design looks like in Western Europe, as well as East Asia. Here we have international Western company websites and their Eastern counterparts. Pizza Hut Germany versus Pizza Hut China. Häagen-Dazs USA versus Häagen-Dazs Japan. Here we have international Eastern company websites and their Western counterparts. Nissan Germany versus Nissan Japan. PlayStation Germany versus PlayStation Japan. The differences are more evident with non-international regional companies. Here we have Germany's Edeka versus Lotte Mart Korea. And finally, Germany's Bitburger beer website versus Japan's Sapporo beer. You probably noticed the visual differences in web design. For the Western web sites, you see minimal, although larger visuals, still images, less text, and the use of a bigger grid layout. For Eastern websites, you notice many small visuals. They were animations that are Flash and GIF-based, more text, and the use of a smaller grid layout. From that, we can conclude that Western companies prefer minimalism in design. In the East, what appears to Western eyes as an organized chaos in design. But why is that? There are several factors, but today I go over only 3 of them. The first one being culture. More specifically, low context culture versus high context culture. Your low context culture are generally your Western European websites. Western European countries, like the UK, Germany, as well as the USA. The language is direct and straightforward. Focus is placed on individual harmony, and task is more important than relationship. This leads to low context cultures having less developed information networks. So as you can see in this graphic, the individual and his groups of family, friends, coworkers, and acquaintances, they do not interact. Your high context culture, on the other hand, are East Asian countries such as China, Japan, Korea. The language is indirect, so much of the communication is derived from hidden meaning, and focus is placed on group harmony. Relationship is more important than tasks. So naturally, in a high context culture, the networks are much more developed. On the graphic, these individuals' groups are much more interconnected. So how does that affect web design? Let's take a case study of the Bitburger homepage versus the Sapporo homepage above the fold. The Bitburger homepage, minimalistic in design and straight to the point. You have minimal navigation elements and links with few distractions. You have exactly 2 call to action buttons. A huge, clearly defined stage with a single primary focus. Simply a direct message with a clear information that helps the user perform a task. We want you to learn about our alcohol-free products. Want to win an awesome grill? The Sapporo homepage. Links upon links of seemingly irrelevant information, right? We have several navigational elements and links. We have call to action images, not buttons, located on these carousel stages. And yes, I must mention they are animated. So what is all this information? You have multiple focuses in the top stage, multiple focuses on the smaller stage, tab navigation on the right and the left, a small topic on the top of the stage, another one below that. What is this information? Essentially, it's just indirect messages, not necessarily pointing to a sale, but it might be information about the company or the people behind the product or the service, all in an effort to get the user to form a relationship with that company. When I dig deeper into this website, one of the features is an extensive network list of local restaurants that serve Sapporo beer. So if you love Sapporo beer, you can find a restaurant in your area. Talk about indirect sales while helping the local community and businesses. When you look at this website, at these two websites side by side, they do begin to look like their cultural information networks. The second factor, writing system. If you think about it, the first thing we learn when we were very young children is how to read and write. So the writing system must have an impact on the way we process information as adults. Take the Roman alphabet versus the Chinese character system. Your Roman alphabet has more or less 26 characters, all which a child can learn in the span of 1 year. Combined, a few to several characters can form words. The Chinese character system, you need 2,000 plus characters to be considered literate. And that takes several years to commit to memory. But unlike the alphabet, 1 to 2 characters actually form most common words. So you, I'm assuming most of you are from Europe, know how you learned the alphabet. But how did the Chinese and Japanese learn the Chinese writing system? You paint a picture in their mind. Like a symbol on a road sign, you instantly know what it means when you see it. So how does this affect writing system, web designs? Well, for starters, font types, there are very few font types that support 2,000 plus characters. So web designers in East Asia have to be creative in other ways when playing with text. So they rely a lot on Flash to do that job for them. Secondly, there's a lot of text on that page. But when reading becomes less reading and more about identifying pictures and icons, we have something called rapid pattern matching. The ability to scan for relevant symbols and patterns quickly. Which leads me to my third factor, visual perception. People of different cultures perceive the world around them differently. A study by Taka Masuda and Richard E. Nisbet, respectively of Kyoto University and University of Michigan, also seems to think so. The study revealed interesting results through the use of eye tracking technology. North American students and East Asian students were asked to view an underwater scene. They found that North American students focused on the focal object in the front, giving little reference to the background elements. East Asians, on the other hand, took in the scenery, the whole scenery, giving equal reference to the focal object and the background elements. Naturally, when asked what they see, North Americans replied, "There is a big fish." For the East Asians, it looked like a pond. This study is further supported by Ying Dong's cross-cultural comparative study on user perception of a web page. Here we have two exactly the same web page prototypes. The only difference is language. When Americans viewed the prototype, they scanned it in a sequential fashion with longer fixations on information. Chinese, on the other hand, scanned the page in a circular motion with fewer fixations before settling on information. So how does visual perception affect web design? Well, it really comes full circle to the beginning slides I showed you of Western versus Eastern websites. Westerners need a clear focal point with less distractive elements, leading to minimalistic linear design. East Asians are comfortable with several focal points and more elements. They're simply accustomed to digesting more information, which leads to what you may consider organized chaos in design. But those are not the only factors. There are more, such as business hierarchy, the technology that is being used in specific countries to view the internet, academic methods, or simply the way design aesthetic is taught around the world. For now, you know that design reflects behavior, and behavior is defined by the society in which we live in. So what do? We design by proximity, but no, we do not have to make a website like this one. If we design for a specific country, we need to keep the cultural audience in mind. That means providing relevant content that is meaningful to the user, observing the color world of a country, using imagery that resonates positively with people of a certain culture, and simply understanding the way that users use the internet, the way they behave around the world online is different. We design by proximity. We clean up the website, but we still tailor it to the cultural user's needs. Because if we don't, we won't be able to convert our international users, and we will lose out on opportunities in the emerging markets. So you know what to do. It is time to get in a global mindset. Thank you.
So, do we have any questions? I don't see any yet, but maybe I have one. You pointed out that it's probably based from culture difference. So when you presentate the differences on websites, I also noticed it's the same difference you have in traditional advertisings and series over there. So if you look like Chinese TV or something like that, you will see that all the same, because it's, for us, it's like overloaded. So if you look at this, it's like, oh my God, what's happening? And if you switch to a German or maybe a traditional channel, it's like, oh, it's like vacation. So it's probably the same, so maybe for the same reason, right?
I think so, definitely. Yeah, I have turned on Japanese TV, and it is a much different atmosphere than Western TV shows. For one, we don't really have much variety shows here in the West, but this is something that I guess, you know, there is a culture of people gathering around the TV, so for entertainment purposes, really. So it involves a lot of the family, so you might see a lot of cute things on TV, but it's pretty much targeted at families, and this is a huge aspect of I think, East Asian culture, is the family aspect. So yeah, it's a little bit hyped up.
Okay. So, oh, there's a question over there. So.
Okay, thank you. You quoted a couple of studies, like on East Asia versus Europe and the States, and I forget the other one anyway. Do you know of any other studies concerning other countries like South America or Near East or whichever?
To be honest, I have just started research on that, but I couldn't give you any sources. So okay. I really wish I could, but yeah.
Okay, well, thanks anyway.
Yeah. Yes?
Thank you. Thank you for the very nice presentation. It was mentioned that when Western people look at Asian commercials or web designs, they may feel confused. I'm curious, what do East Asian people think when they look at Western commercials or Western web designs? Are they equally confused, or are they bored, or what do they think of it?
I don't really necessarily think they are confused, but the word I see on the internet is oversimplified. So that is the only one I became across when regarding to Western commercials and web design, is the term oversimplified.
So no more questions? One question over here. I can just talk now. No,
Just a simple question. When you have these different cultures having different influences on their different marketing advertisements, you always have these cross-culture jumping trends. You know, when there's something interesting in design happening over in the US, it's very fast over here because our cultures are similar, but it's also starting to leak into Japanese and all the other cultures. Are there boundaries to that? Is there stuff that won't ever open up, or is there stuff that you actually feel, yeah, that happened like 10 years ago in Europe and now it's finally starting to work in Japan as well?
I think right now we're in a culture or an age of mixing cultures, so it's starting to be understood by the younger generation. So we are on the internet, and our younger teenagers are on the internet. They're exposed more to the world. So I think there's a bigger acceptance of the mixed culture, advertising, and web design. I think, yeah, we're going to see a marriage of Eastern and Western web design.
Thank you.
Nope. We're good. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for your talk. Just on a question of color schemes and design, are there particular colors besides red which are very attractive or appealing to people in East Asia? And are there colors which maybe would be unattractive to people in East Asia that we would not know about? And has that changed over time since the internet has been introduced, or are these longer term patterns?
I think there definitely were colors that were considered taboo, but with the introduction of the internet, technology kind of introduces, other cultures. So what ended up happening in Asia is that technically white is considered the color of death, but we see a lot of it on websites nowadays because it simply lifts the web design off the page. So I think really the taboo is not using enough colors for East Asian web design, and it really depends also on the subject. Like if you're going to go Zen, then you need to make the colors more natural. So they're starting to also understand this, but if it's supposed to be fun, they definitely are not afraid of using color. Yeah.
So thanks. Make me maybe a warm applause for Mayen for the talk. So of course this wouldn't be a Webmontag if we changed anything else. So we try to bring more internet to this evening today. So we tried a little bit different. We not only prepared speakers, we also did some interviews up front. So we will now be able to get a small video interview we got a couple of days before. So it's from Axel, who's currently in, where was it? Yeah, exactly, we will see.
Well, basically on my current journey around the world, I'm connected by Wi-Fi, simply because it's quicker, more convenient, and not all companies here offer a reasonable Wi-Fi access if you do it via mobile phone. For sure there are limitations. On one hand, sometimes Wi-Fi is quite slow here, which I don't care, basically because I'm just texting or sending emails or so on, and don't do much video conferencing or let's say TV things. But for sure there are limitations, and maybe there would be even more limitations if I would access by my mobile phone. I personally benefit currently extremely well because I'm connected with friends and family, let's say around the world. I have an online access, can text with them and chat with them, easily talk about things at home, and that wouldn't be possible without internet. Maybe some years just with mobile, but not so convenient because there is still a time lag currently with 12 hours, and that's quite a lot. And the significance I would rate as extremely high, let's say especially for the economy, to have quick and efficient communications and solve problems, let's say immediately, and connect easily. Thanks.
So, this is probably what we most do with the internet, communication with other people, right? So, our next talk will be, cover a probably sensitive area because it's about emailing and the usage of PGP. You probably will heard about PGP is complicated and it will not work right for everyone. So we have some solution for that, or not we, but Enno has. So he will now introduce Kinko.me, which will be a kind of plug-and-play solution for using PGP in every environment you can imagine. So enjoy your talk of Enno and have fun.
Hello everyone. Yes, as I was introduced, my name is Enno and I'm with the Kinko.me team, and I'm here to talk about the Kinko.me project, what we are doing, what we did so far. And this talk is a bit about privacy and maybe a short look out into the next few slides. Right now we are talking about email privacy. So this is the first short trip into the past. Like the first email ever sent was in 1971, and we know what is in this email because it was sent by a guy which is called Ray Tomlinson, and he says he wrote QWERTY in this first email, or maybe something similar, I can't remember anymore. But back then the internet was 2 years old and consisted of probably 10 nodes. This has changed in the last years. Today this is a map of the internet, and we have more than 1 billion nodes, and the internet has gained huge political and economical impact these days. And there are people like Google and NSA that are able to read most of the emails that are sent out today. And what's happening with those emails is that they are analyzed. And I'm not sure if everyone in this room knows that an email is a little bit more like a postcard than a letter. Like when we mail a letter, we assume that the post office takes the letter and transfers it to the recipient. And no one in the post service is allowed to have a look into this. But an email actually is more like a postcard. And your mailman can easily read what's on your postcards. And so can your email provider read what's in your email. And who does this? Well, email providers and governments and agencies. And we know this because Google itself says that they are reading our email. Well, they have some software that does this for them with the idea to target commercials and advertisement to you. And we know, well, we assumed all the time, but right now we know that governments and agencies are reading our emails as well. And yeah, for a couple of purposes, I would sum this up as commercial surveillance and espionage purposes. And what we must understand is that most of the emails are not read by an actual human, but are read by some software. So what's the consequence of this? We could just say, well, we don't care, and just go on about our daily lives as we did all the last 20 years or so. Or we could start encrypt our email. And I'm pretty sure that most of the people know about this project, which is called PGP. And you mentioned this before. And PGP actually is around since 1991. This was a guy with the name Phil Zimmerman. He started this project, and it was subtitled PGP, Pretty Good Privacy Encryption for the Masses. And that's an idea that I think is really cool, because pretty good privacy doesn't mean perfect privacy. Pretty good privacy means probably it's good for you and me and average persons. But encryption for the masses is a very strong point, because it means that it's not only usable by some experts, but it's available to everyone. And this is what we want to achieve, and this is what Phil Zimmerman wanted to achieve. His idea was give strong cryptography into the hand of the people and make it available to everyone, and don't rely on a central infrastructure, because by introducing a central infrastructure, like the state would hand out encryption keys or so, you would automatically lose this encryption for the masses thing. But now, 23 years later, not many people are using PGP if we take a closer look. And we were thinking about this, and we think the reason for this is that PGP is still too hard to use. And like a short story maybe, there are those crypto parties where people help other people install and start using PGP. And the first crypto party I ever met, the speaker, it took him 90 minutes just to explain the basics of using PGP with Enigmail, the plugin for the Thunderbird mail program. PGP today is not impossible, but really hard to use on a mobile device and in a secure fashion. PGP usually enforces you to use an email client that actually supports PGP. Not every email client does it. And in fact, all the email clients that came to market, or most of the email clients that came to market in the last year, don't support PGP at all. And the last thing is more like a social thing. I think many users still have the notion that they wouldn't have anything to hide, so they, in a way, they really don't care. And yeah, that's totally different reason for not using it. Well, we are here to change this. Our idea is to provide easy email encryption, which is, of course, the opposite of all the other stuff, because we think what we did is easy to use, is easy to get started. It works with your email address, you don't have to change it. It works on all devices, and it works with most email programs, and not only the few that have a specific plugin, and which is open source also. And, well, how can this work, you might wonder? First thing is, this is not a software, or it is software, but the software comes on a small device like this size. And you just get this box, plug it in the router at your home. And it has a cute name. Well, it has to have a unique name, and we decided we would give it a cute name like Pink Pony or Strong Elephant, whatever. And it has a unique SSL certificate on that name. This is important so that we can encrypt all the traffic that goes to the device. And then on this box, there's an SMTP proxy. For those of you that don't know what SMTP is a protocol that your mail program talks to the mail server. So when you send out an email, it talks to the server in this protocol, which is called SMTP. And we have this one on the box. So when you send out an email, it goes to the SMTP server on that box, and the server encrypts it and sends it on. And we have an IMAP sync. Now again, for those that don't know, IMAP is the other side, the receiving side of the email protocol. Basically, that means there's an IMAP server on this box, and when your mail program reads an email, it gets the email from this box, and then the email is already decrypted. And of course, for those people that are bound to use a web browser to read email, we have this also, so you can just use a browser and open the box in your browser and read your email. And it took us a lot of time to get a simple process that helps people to start using this box, because we figured it must be so super easy that really everyone can use it, and we ended up with I don't know, it's a 4 or 5 step process in the end. The first step is there's a welcome page. The next step is you have to agree to the open source licenses. The next step is you set up an encryption key, or basically the box sets up an encryption key. You just say, please do so. Then the next step is you set up your email address, and this is as easy as setting up an email address in an email program, and I guess every one of you has done this before. And the last step is that you set up your email client to use this box instead of the Google mail servers, for example. And we were thinking about this for quite some time, and right now we have 2 processes that work very well. There's a one-click install on a Mac, so you click a button and then the box downloads an installation profile to your Mac and you install it. Everything is set up with Apple Mail. We have a QR code that you can scan with your iPhone or iPad, and then once you do this, your iPad gets set up automatically. And of course, we have installation guides that help you setting up other email accounts in other email programs. And then, because I said it has to work everywhere, which means if you have it installed on your iPhone, and then you are not at home, but I don't know, in your office, and then you still want to read your email, because this is what you're used to all the time. You can read your email when it's hosted by Google, sure. So there must be some way to connect the box in your home and your mobile phone, and we bring you this shuttle service which just does this. And this is encrypted. For the details, you can talk with me in the break probably, because this would be too long to explain here. But it's nothing that we built ourselves. This is something where we rely on OpenSSL for those techies in the audience. The thing is, in the end, no one can read the data when it comes when it goes from your mobile phone to your box. Yeah, and this is more or less the most important things that I wanted to tell you about the Kinkomi box. Now, when we tell about this thing, we usually have the same set of questions that people ask us, and I wanted to ask me these questions right now. The first thing is, now, okay, I have a box and I want to send out an encrypted email. Does the recipient also need a box? And the answer is no. because the recipient can also use Thunderbird in Enigmail Mail or Apple Mail with the GPG Tools plugin or any other solution that works with GPG. We still feel that the box is really way easier to use than all this other stuff. And the second thing is, if I own a box and I have this box in my home, and I live with my girlfriend, and she can use the same box, so we don't have to buy one box for each of us. So that's the other thing where people can use PGP encrypted email right away. The second question, do I need a new email address? And the answer is no, you don't. It's possible to use it different in a new email address, but the idea was to bring people into this GPG thing as easy as possible, and changing your email address and telling everyone in the world you have a new one is probably not that good a way. The last thing is, for those that know about PGP, there's this thing which is called a public key and a private key, and you have to know the public key of the recipient, and only then you can send an encrypted email to him or to her. And well, this box helps you with this, so usually you don't have to do anything. You just have to set up this box and can start right away. Yeah, now I want to tell you a few things about where we stand, where we come from, where we're going to. And we started this project with email encryption in October 2013, like, what's it, 10 months ago. And we presented the project at the 30th, the Chaos Computer Club Congress in Hamburg. We were invited by the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, to San Francisco to present the project. We are still in the run for the IT Sicherheitspreis this year here in Germany, and we have a working prototype, this one. And now the future. Well, we all don't know really what's going on in the future, but we have ideas that go far beyond just email encryption. Because if you would have a box like this in your home, then you would have a piece of hardware which has a unique encryption key. Which is just on that box. And so you could build something with this. And this is what we actually want to achieve, that people start building applications that need privacy and that need strong but still decentralized privacy. For example, we have ideas about integrating a Dropbox clone, so when you share files via Dropbox, they don't get sent to this server in the US, but they just stay on this small box in your home. And we want to add video chat, and we want to open this platform so that everyone who's able to can write applications for this box. Right now, we started a crowdfunding campaign just 2 days ago or something, and you should feel invited to support us. And yeah, this is where we are standing right now. And there's one other thing that I need to add. When I said in the beginning, one reason that people don't use encryption is that they have the feeling they don't have anything to hide. But I feel that that's not true for everyone, basically. And so this is more a social issue. People have to start talking about this and have to start just using encryption. And so we want to support the community. And there's one thing, you probably heard of this, is the Freiheit statt Angst demonstration in Berlin, which takes place once a year. This year is 30th of August. If you find the time, drop by, and if you come to Berlin, give us a call and we will meet for coffee. So now, this is my last slide in this talk. I want to thank you all. If you take one thing away from this talk, I really want you to start using email encryption. Honestly, I don't really care if you're using our box or not. I still want this box, and this box will only happen if we make the crowdfunding campaign a success. So if you take away 2 things from this talk, then please support us at getkinko.com. Thank you.
So, and again, some questions. Yeah, there are some questions in the crowd.
Well, obviously, how much is the box?
This sounds much, but the box is 195 euros in the crowdfunding campaign. We have the feeling that it's way too expensive still, and we want to have it cheaper, but to make hardware cheap, you have to mass produce. And so the thing is just to get this out, the first 1,000 boxes or so, and then to see where we're going.
I have one comment and two comments basically. One comment is that my feeling is that the problem with email encryption is not basically that you think that you should hide something, but that nobody of the guys I'm mailing with wants to use it. So it's not me, it's the others. That's at least my feeling. Maybe I'm completely wrong. And the second thing I wanted to note about hardware, there is the A10 and the A20 Lime boxes by Olimax. They cost about 40 euros and they do a lot for the bugs. So if you want to look into some other hardware, that's my recommendation. And there is a standard Debian on it, so it's a nice box.
Thank you.
I'm not affiliated with them, but I just like them.
Okay. Just to the first remark, my feeling is that even those people that don't want to use email encryption right away, when you talk to them and say, but hey, listen, I want to use email encryption and I want to communicate with you, can you please start email encryption? And then they say, okay, I had a look at Thunderbird and Enigmail and I really hate it, so you're going back to non-encrypted. But if you are giving those people the possibility to really use an easy thing, and the thing that must be set up once, and even the setup is easy, then those people are ready to use encryption. This is my experience, but we can discuss this in a break. And the second question, I wasn't really sure if you were saying the Linux Lime is great, or if you were saying it sucks.
It's good.
Yeah. That's cool, because this is what we have in this box.
Okay, so what's the rest of the euros?
Say again?
I'm just wondering what the rest of the money goes in then, because A10 is something like 50 euros if you buy it directly.
Okay, I can give you a short rundown. It's not perfect numbers. And it's not super complete, but just a short rundown. If you buy the board that's in this box, it costs 30 euros. And if you buy the Gehäuse in English, case, if you buy the case, it's another 5 euros. And then you buy the storage, and then you buy the power adapter, and so on. And then you end up with like 45 to 50 euros, and then you add VAT on top, and then you have like, yes, you do, because it's from Bulgaria. But anyways, we don't have to discuss the details. In the end, you end up with like 70 euros or something, or say 80 euros. But this is the thing when you do this on your own. If you do this in a somehow commercial sense, then you have people that want to return the box because they don't like it or it's broken or whatever. And estimates are about 20 to 40% for that. And you have additional costs on top for, well, other stuff, fulfillment, payment, and so on. Everything costs money, and I'm really sorry to tell this, but that's true. And so in the end, what ends up in our, not really pockets, because we're using this stuff to pay our rent and to pay our servers, well, what ends up is probably more like 40 to 50 euros. So you should feel invited. I said the software is open source. You should feel invited to get the hardware yourself and to download and install the software yourself. I would really love this, because then I would have less hassle. Okay.
Is this something you could convince a computer manufacturer to integrate into their manufacturing process?
That's a hard question, but an interesting one. I think it would be cool to have software like this added to routers, because I think the router would be the perfect place to add this functionality. But the thing is, to convince router manufacturers, well, you have to prove that there's a market for this. So if you would, I don't know, if someone comes along and orders 100,000 boxes, then we can talk again. But until then, it's probably hard to convince them, especially since the software that's running on this box needs more power than you usually have in a router. But we would like to see this integrated in a device that users already have.
Okay, so thank you for your talk. We will now switch over another time to the World Wide Web. This time we will move to Switzerland, where Gilbert will us some warm words. And after that, we have a last talk and then the break.
Hi, my name is Gilbert Fisch and I live in Horgen, a suburban town of Zurich, Switzerland. I have internet access in my apartment through wireless and I'm using iPhone, iPad and my MacBook. Outside of my apartment, we have almost 100% connectivity here in Switzerland through 4G and 3G networks, and wherever possible, I hook up to the internet through wireless again. Well, as I said, there is practically 100% connectivity in this country. So there are almost no limitations to get on the internet. Well, I believe the internet has made me maybe a smarter, but truly well-informed person. I use it for almost any purchase decision I make today. It might have saved me some bucks on one hand, and it might have cost me a lot of bucks on the other hand, because I also tend to buy stuff that maybe I don't really need. But on the information side, it's really something I wouldn't want to be without anymore. The worldwide significance is enormous. I mean, this world wouldn't be the world we have right now without the internet. But I also see quite some dangerous points in the widespread internet these days. I believe it's making a lot of people sick because they cannot switch off from it. They have or feel the necessity to be online all the time. And there is a danger in that. I think we should all learn how to switch offline again and take time off the internet, especially what personal communication is concerned.
Okay, so I think everyone remembers a little bit of the stuff for himself, like buying stuff you don't need. So we will go on to the next talk. If you remember the last talk, it was about the box, so it was like founding a new company. And the next talk will be held by Marco, which will be which is from the yeah, it's like in German it's called Gründerstammtisch, right? Yeah, it's something like Founders Table. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Founders Table here in the area for like 2 years, something like that. Yeah. So if you're interested in building up a new company or something like that, or just want to keep in touch with probably cool new companies, he's probably the right one to talk to. So I will hand over to him for the next talk. Have fun.
Thank you for the nice introduction. To start off quickly, who has ever heard of Startup Weekend? I guess about 30–35%. Okay, that's a nice number, actually. That is a big word up there. A global phenomenon. Global in itself means like every sentient being we know to exist. And the question is, what does a global phenomenon mean when I say a startup weekend is that? Well, let's first start off, what does it mean to be global? Well, it has to work everywhere. Everywhere on the planet Earth, there are people that are doing startup weekends. I don't want to bore you with statistics. There have been about over 1,000 startup weekends last year in over 126 countries. So it's global, trust me. What is the startup weekend? I'm going to show you. To show you that it's really global, that's just a picture of the website where they list all these startup weekends. This weekend, there's one in Iraq. Next weekend, there's one, the same weekend, there's one in the Dominican Republic, in Canada, in a military base in the USA. There's one in Australia. So, like, all around the world, in Asia, everywhere, people are doing startup weekends right now. Like, every weekend. You can find that on startupweekend.org. Those are basically one of the most interesting events that I've ever attended. Why is that so? Well, it started in 2007 with that guy, Andrew Hyde. If you're interested in traveling the world or living on the bare minimum, he's the guy to Google. He's like, somebody read about him, that he's just has 15 things. So just 15, nothing else. And he lived on that perfectly for a while. He ran the Techstars incubator in New York for a while. So he started Startup Weekend just in 2007, 7 years ago. And since that, it has developed in this global thing. And, well, what is it to attend to a Startup Weekend? Because it would be easy to try to explain the Startup Weekend via a chart, but it won't tell you how it feels. So let's take you through it the way we did our Startup Weekend, because everything global has to work local, like we heard before, and I completely support that notion. Everything good starts with a barbecue. Our event started with really good food, and that's how most Startup Weekends start. They invite you. You get there, you meet interesting people, you have good food, and you talk. Basically, you just get to know each other. And then there's this discussion starting up. People already tell themselves about, if you look here, this is Dominic on the left. He already has himself branded as a developer. Such events, it's quite dangerous to do that. And then there comes a time when somebody like that, weird fellow, comes and tells you, all go get inside, get in a room, we're going to do something. And what you're doing is you're pitching. You're telling all the audience, basically an audience a little bit bigger than this, what you want to do. Like, what is your really idea in starting a company? Or sometimes it's just starting a social movement. It's how to start, basically, and what you want to do. And you have to be brave because you have just 60 seconds. Sorry for that potato image, by the way. You see there's a line on the left, and there's actually a friend of mine, Marcos, pitching over there. And he's telling in 60 seconds what his dream is about. He has this vision, and with all the fire that he has inside of him, he's trying to convince the crowd that, hey, please, I need you guys to make this possible because I'm just one of the founders, and please, I need some second crazy person to start this with. Well, he did this quite well. And what we end up with is the people that have pitched, they put everything they pitched again on a second board, hold it up, and let the audience decide which are the 10 best startups that have pitched the 10 best ideas. And then this happens. Wait, if we want to actually do this, we need developers, we need designers, we need people to actually do the hard work. Well, and the good thing is, at a startup weekend, you find these people. Because if you want to start a company, you have to be driven. And in most cases, driven people already on their way acquire certain abilities, and those happen to include development and design. And not only that, also business and ethics would be good as well. Well, if you find your team, you start to work. You really go into the grid. You have to test out your idea. You talk in groups. And What you see here, this is a business model canvas. I think some people have seen that. It's a way to actually describe your business to make it basically visible on a sheet of paper and try to see out if there are blank spots. If there's something that's not working, if you haven't thought about anything, you can see that in a business model canvas quite easily. There is programming, obviously. There's also fun. Don't remember, there's people who've paid about 50 euros to work on a weekend. It's a kind of strange mind attitude to do that, so it gets funny, especially late, especially when there's beer. So people go on, and on the Saturday, you are driven with mentors. Mentors come to you and tell you, hey, have you thought about being financially stable? Is there an income stream for what you're trying to do? Have you tested anything yet? Because on Saturday, you have a whole day to actually find out if your idea has some worth. And you can do that on a weekend. You can quite easily go outside and ask people. You can put up a website and put some Facebook advertisements out and try to see if people actually click on what you're interested or in what you're offering. And as you see with driven people, there's still work there. There's still excitement there. There's still some energy that still wants to get out on a weekend. Always you have to have food. You have breakfast. You have these kinds of things provided to you. Don't keep your mind off of what you're actually wanting to do. Obviously, there have to be a good deal of energy drinks to get through the weekend. But on Sunday, things get interesting. On Sunday, things get a little tense. Then what you're working on a weekend is a presentation for Sunday. Because on Sunday, you see on the upper right here, there's 4 chairs in our situation for the judges, because you're going to be judged. There is basically a jury deciding who is going to be the idea of the weekend, who is going to be the startup of the weekend. And things fill up. Normally more people than ever attended the whole weekend come to just watch the startups, to just be interested. There's venture capitalists in there, there's investors in there, there's mentors in there, people trying to place good jobs, finding hires. I mean, you don't have to start a business sometimes, but you can meet the most interesting people at such events. And, well, then it gets really interesting. Because then you have 5 minutes to convince those jury people to make you the startup of the thing. Let's cut. I've now just described, now tried to give you a feel how it is to attend a startup weekend. Does that explain why it's a global phenomenon? Not really, but it gives you a sense. Because if you think back, let's go completely back to the start. To be global means to work everywhere. It means that there is something that unites the planet, that there are rules working a level below or level higher. It depends where you look for. And if you compare what we do at the startup weekend with how an engine runs, then you can kind of see what's happening. Here, we're gathering fuel, we're gathering air, we're gathering we're gathering energy, and then we put some pressure on it. We compress it. We try to find out who is going to be it. If you are attending, you're not trying to talk to somebody who's just talking air. You're trying to find somebody who gets you to the chase as fast as possible. So there's pressure, there's some tingling in the air. And then, the whole weekend, there's trying to ignite. There's struggle, there's work, there's energy, there is something. And then you try to find out, what can I do? And those are physics. If you put energy if you put fuel into something, if you compress it, and then if you add a spark, then it ignites. And that is something that works everywhere on the planet. An engine works everywhere. And that's the same thing why startup weekends work not only in Rwanda, not only in Syria, not only in Iraq, not only in the US, not only in the Silicon Valley, not only in Japan, not only in Korea. They also work here. That's why I chose photos from our last event in 2012, 2 years ago. Because there is something. Remember this guy on the left, Dominic? Well, he founded Bluebee, the app that you've just been introduced at the start. He founded that on Startup Weekend. Remember this photo from the start? In the middle, there's Patrick. On the right, there's Wolfgang. Patrick just, with his crowdfunding startup, they're just starting to raise a six-digit number of money for an energy-efficient program. He's really having success. There is really some bang going. And then on the right, Wolfgang. He's the founder of Sorglos Internet. He's listed as one of the 100 in Berlin, one of the 100 most interesting startups that are coming out of Berlin for the last 5 years. Yeah, he's moved to Berlin. Well, things happen, people change. But still, there was excitement in there. There was something. And that's why it's global. Like she said perfectly, if something has to work globally, it has to work locally as well. And we proved that it did, and we're proving that it also will work again. That's why in this October, we're going to have our next Startup Weekend. Remember the date, 24th to 26th. We're going to have the Startup Weekend. Follow us on Twitter, @Rhein-Main, or just Google Startup Weekend Rhein-Main. We'll have more information up soon if you want to join. And we basically have everything that you need to actually get off the started and get connected to a global community. Because when you've attended a Startup Weekend, you haven't just been to an interesting event and have just met some interesting people. You've gained an experience that not so many people, compared to how many people there are, have actually in common. You've been to some pressure. You're an alumni then. And you know how you talk differently to people. If you talk to other people that have been to a Startup Weekend, you can see that they see things in a different way. If you've ever tried to just make a sale on a weekend, if you had an idea on Friday and your first sale on Saturday, and on Monday you were already thinking about how to get like 10,000 more of those T-shirts that I want to sell, or how do I actually raise the money to, I don't know, build that laptop that I wanted to build, then you know that there's new things opening up. Thank you.
So, do we have any startup questions? I don't see any hands. Nobody wants to start up something? Yeah, so nothing to start up. So, for now, we have a break. Sadly, we don't have a barbecue. Oh, sorry, yeah, of course. Applause for Mario again. So for now, we will have a 30 minutes break. You can get something to drink, maybe some small food from downstairs. Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to grab something, go downstairs, but don't miss the 30 minutes break. And I will give the mic now to Ali again for some warm words for our questionnaire.
So, first of all, thanks again to Mario for a great pitch. For those of you German-speaking who haven't already did the Umfrage, or survey, questionnaire, it's still in German, so and we would love to hear from you. So, if you would like to participate, just get the link or the QR code, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Thank you. Have fun in the break.
So I break the presentation already, so, yeah. Okay, so the next thing on the list is a video, again, a video from US this time, so it's far away.
She's actually in Mayen.
In Mayen?
She's from US but lives in Mayen.
Oh, okay. So she lives in Mayen right now, which is not that far. Sorry about that. But she's usually from US, so let's start the talk from Robin.
My name is Robin Limeroth. I am from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, but I have been living in Mainz, Germany for the past 25 years. I connect to the internet using my laptop and my cell phone, using Wi-Fi in my home or in public places where Wi-Fi is available. The only limitation that I have accessing the internet are, well, I guess there are two. One, when I'm out and about, that sometimes Wi-Fi isn't available, especially in Germany. There aren't as many Wi-Fi hotspots available as there are in the States. So you often don't have access, and I could use my cell phone as a hotspot when I have my laptop with me, but sometimes that's a little complicated. I'm also not that technically savvy, so so far everything I've needed to do has worked out for my purposes. The second limitation is one that I give myself. I don't choose to access my email on my cell phone. Being a freelance translator, sometimes it's nice not to have to read your email 24 hours a day when you're out and about. I do receive phone calls and messages, and I will check Facebook and other social media, but I choose not to receive my email when I'm on the go as well, because that's a little bit too much, in my opinion. I have many personal benefits due to the internet. First of all, living abroad as an expatriate, it makes it very easy for me to be in touch with my family and friends back home. Through social media, through email, and many different things. It keeps me connected to the place that I come from. It also helps me in my job, obviously, in many ways. As a translator, being able to research everything online rather than to have to schlep around a bunch of heavy dictionaries is incredible. Not just in terms of dictionaries, but also in terms of background information for the subjects that I'm translating. So that's incredible. Obviously, being able to send my files back and forth to clients without having to fax them is definitely a bonus. In my private life, other than keeping in touch with the people in America, I also use it for organizing pretty much everything. For organizing my kids' lives, being in touch with their teachers, their classmates, their extracurricular activities, their therapists. My daughter's a special needs child, so I am in contact with her therapists, and sending messages back and forth is immensely helpful there. Sometimes you just don't really have the time for a phone conversation. You just want to zip off a few little words, and that works out wonderfully. It's also handy for my son who plays baseball. I'm on the board at the Baseball Association, and we organize everything by email. I also am in charge of his team and all the organization that goes with that, and everything goes out by email and Facebook. So I can't even imagine how hard that would be to organize everything without the internet. The global significance, well, obviously being an expatriate living in another country, it's significant for me to be able to know everything that's going on in my home country without having to go out and buy a newspaper and hear about things that happened yesterday. You know what's happening around the world immediately, and I think that's globally significant on many levels, which I unfortunately don't have the time to go into here. So I hope that this was a little bit helpful.
Okay. So, I think we have shown pretty much how important internet is these days. I guess everyone in here has used it once. If not, could you raise your hand? No? Nobody. Okay, perfect. So, yeah, we can say as today, internet is elsewhere, right?
Right.
Okay. everywhere. So the next talk is not really a talk like the ones before. We have another video showing. This is a guy from US. His name is Cyrus. And I think Ali picked him up. So let me hand over to you to introduce him a little bit.
Thank you. By the way, actually, the Jürgen Eichholz, also known at JKE in Twitter, please follow him. This is my following recommendation today. He picked him up and he tried it with email. As we heard right now, internet is email and Facebook. So he tried email first. Cyrus didn't answer, probably because of his PGP constellation. Then Jürgen chatted him on Facebook. So then we got an answer. So internet seems to be email plus Facebook. Anyway, Cyrus is senior editor working for Ars Technica, and a couple of years ago he brought out this book, Internet of Elsewhere, in which he traveled to different countries and for himself found out how the internet is different in other countries, actually elsewhere. So we had a chance to talk with him per Skype last Thursday, and we cut it out some of the very interesting parts of that, and we would like to show you this now.
So have a lot of fun.
My name is Cyrus Farivar. I am an Iranian-American journalist. I live in Oakland, California, near San Francisco. I lived for 2 years in Germany, in Bonn, from 2010 to 2012, where I was working for Deutsche Welle English service. I had a radio program called Spectrum, which was about European science and technology news. And I've previously also lived in France and Switzerland, and I have relatives in Germany, France, and other parts of Europe. So I love Europe. I'm looking forward to coming back to Germany for vacation in September, in fact.
Cool. This September.
So, yeah. But I currently work for a technology news website called Ars Technica. We are owned by Condé Nast, which also publishes the New Yorker magazine, Wired magazine, Vanity Fair, many other American magazines. I am the senior business editor there, but in addition to writing about business, I also spend a lot of time writing about privacy, surveillance, tech law, tech policy, things like that. So there's a lot to write about, and my time in Germany definitely influenced the types of stories that I cover now, and thank you for having me. So coming as an American, coming from California, we hear a lot about American technology companies. We hear a lot about the American impact on the internet as a whole. And certainly America and California, Silicon Valley in particular, has had a great impact on technological evolution in recent years. It was here, of course, that the internet was originally developed. It was here that many of the major technology companies have been founded. Apple, Google, more recently Facebook, Twitter, and many others. But I think one of the things that unfortunately I think we as Americans tend to do is to sort of forget about other things that are happening in other countries, and we tend not to look at what's going on in other parts of the world and try to learn from them. And so I wanted to figure out, well, what is going on in other parts of the world? And what does the internet look like in other parts of the world? And not only that, but what does the internet look like, in a range of countries outside the US? So as you mentioned in my book, The Internet of Elsewhere, I write about 4 countries, Iran, Estonia, South Korea, and Senegal. And I see these countries as sort of representative as a continuum, a spectrum of connectivity in the world, with South Korea, of course, being on one side, the world's most wired country in the world, and with Senegal maybe not being the least most connected country, but, as a sub-Saharan African country, it certainly has its struggles. Yet, Senegal, as far as the internet is concerned, is doing a lot better than many other of its neighboring countries. And then, of course, with Iran and Estonia being maybe somewhere in the middle. So I wanted to kind of learn about how the internet has played out in different parts of the world. And of course, you could apply this to any country in the world. You could understand, what does the internet look like and feel like in Germany or in South Africa or in Pakistan or in Bolivia or anywhere else. I just happened to choose these ones. Estonia is one of my favorite countries. As my friends and family will tell you, I'm something of a Estonia obsessive. I have been to Estonia maybe, I think, 8 times over the last 10 years. And it was a country that, honestly, before I traveled there for the first time in 2005, almost 10 years ago, I barely knew anything about Estonia. But I first even heard of Estonia, really, when I read a newspaper article that said that in Estonia they had declared internet access as a human right. And I thought, well, that's really strange. What does that even mean? And more importantly, where's Estonia and what's Estonia all about and what is it? What do they do there? And I knew that it had been part of the Soviet Union. It had been occupied, but I didn't know anything else about it. I didn't know anything about its language, its people, its history. I could barely find it on a map. And so my first question was, what is going on with this tiny country that I've never heard of? And so I started to do a little bit more research into Estonia. And as I said, I went there. And I started learning about all of these interesting government projects and private projects like Skype, for example. The thing that's powering our conversation right now came out of Estonia. And I learned that Estonia has really had an outsized influence on creating and using its own types of technology. Just to give one example, Estonia is the first country in the world to have national internet-based elections. Here in the United States, many people may remember our election from the year 2000 when we had problems with paper voting. And in Estonia, I feel like we can barely get paper voting right in this country, and yet Estonia already has internet voting. This is, of course, enabled by a digital ID card. So just like you guys in Germany have probably your German national ID card with you, in Estonia they have a similar ID card, but it has a digital chip on it. And people use it they put it into a reader, plug it into their computer, go onto a certain website, and can interact with the government in all kinds of ways. They can check their university admissions, they can pay their parking tickets, they can vote, they can pay their taxes. They can do practically any government service that you can think of is done through what's called this sort of citizens portal in Estonia. And that's something that I think is really incredible. Estonia has made use of this and, to some degree has suffered for it. Some people may remember there was the big cyber attack in Estonia some years ago from Russia. But Estonia really has emerged now as a major player, particularly in Europe, with respect to cybersecurity, e-government, things like that. And it's surprising to me, when I meet people in Germany or in other parts of Europe, many people that I interact with that even know technology or interested in technology haven't traveled to Estonia, haven't considered Estonia, haven't thought about Estonia. And I try to, talk it up as much as I can. It's a really amazing country, and I think that many people in Europe and here, especially in North America, could learn a lot from their experience. Estonia, we have to look back into history a little bit to understand that. So Estonia, of course, was occupied by the Soviet Union during the bulk of the 20th century. But it's important to remember that Estonia, relatively speaking, relative to the rest of the Soviet Union, was actually in a pretty good state of affairs, right? So Estonia had a very high literacy rate. The education was very good. The economy, again, relative to the rest of the Soviet Union, was pretty good. And one of the things that the Soviet Union wanted to do in Estonia was to really encourage the education of science and technology. In the 1970s, I believe it was, the Soviet Union established something called the Institute of Cybernetics. And this was sort of one of the best examples of how the Soviet government really pushed for science, technology, education, and encouraged Estonians encouraged Estonians to study science instead of studying literature and political science and art and social science and other things like that. And in fact, it's sort of an odd coincidence of history that the very first offices of Skype were held at the Institute of Cybernetics in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia. So you had this kind of mix of people that were very well educated with, and by the time Estonia regained its independence in 1991, you had a bunch of people who were very smart, who sort of didn't really know kind of what to do. And when the two founders of Skype, Janus Friis and Nicholas Zenström, actually a Dane and a Swede, in fact, when they were looking for smart, good programmers that they could hire for not very much money, they didn't have to look very far. They just looked to Estonia, and they found a team of 4 programmers that developed Skype, and it's developed into this powerhouse, and eventually, as we all know, was acquired by Microsoft for billions of dollars. So, and Skype, I think, definitely is the biggest sort of Estonian success story. If if here in the U.S., if all startups want to be Google, if all startups look to Google as their model, in Estonia, I think lots of Estonian startups hope to be the next Skype, hope to be acquired for billions of dollars. So Estonia has free Wi-Fi everywhere, and it's hard to sort of understand, especially coming from somewhere like California or even somewhere like Germany, where there is Wi-Fi, VLAN, all over the place, really. But from my experience in Germany, at least, it was difficult to find commonly free, open Wi-Fi that didn't require a password, that didn't require a login. I found in many places, especially in train stations and airports, Deutsche Telekom would have some sort of splash page, and they would want you to pay €5 or something ridiculous to access the Wi-Fi in the train station or the airport. And this is a big shock when Estonians come to Germany or to other places and they're asked to pay for something that for them has always been free. When I first went to Estonia in 2005, I would say 75–80% of the Wi-Fi hotspots that I encountered were free. And there were a few that charged maybe the equivalent of €1 or €2 for 24 hours. But those have all gone now. There are no more paid Wi-Fi, as far as I know, anywhere in Estonia. And this was largely due to the efforts of one man, an Estonian named Veljo Hammer, who I write about in some detail in my book. Veljo is an Estonian. There you go. Is an Estonian who grew up during the Soviet period, and when Wi-Fi first started to come out, he thought that this was such a transformative technology that he really encouraged business owners, cafe owners, hotel owners, all kinds of people to put Wi-Fi in their locations, and he thought that this was something that should be as free or as ubiquitous as water, as air, as electricity. He really thought that this was something that would change the country, and he was right. And I think, as you then pointed out, later on, after Estonia developed this digital ID card system, what that now means is that if you are an Estonian, anywhere in the country, if you're on a ferry to Helsinki, if you're on a bus going to Tartu to the south, if you're in your grandma's house in the forest somewhere on one of the Western Islands or somewhere, you can very easily participate in the society in just as you normally would. You can conduct business, you can found a company, you can pay your taxes, you can sign contracts. A key element to understand also of the digital ID card is this idea of the e-signature. And under Estonian law, an e-signature is just as valid as a paper signature. So you can sign documents, contracts, anything like that, and that carries the full force of the law behind it. And in fact, it's worth noting that right now, Estonia is in the process of expanding these ID cards to non-resident non-Estonians. So, for example, you and I, probably within the next year or so, if we want to, can sign up for one of these digital ID cards, even though we're not Estonian and we don't live in Estonia. Right now, it's limited to those two, but that would be really cool, because that would mean that, you know, me sitting here in California, I could access all of the Estonian government services. I could found a company in Estonia with just a few clicks from my computer using this digital ID card. And that way I could take advantage of all of the other services that Estonia has to offer. And I think that that could really transform how people think about, you know, founding companies. Estonia, of course, is a member of the European Union, so they would benefit from the European market and from European laws and all of those things. So, you know, having those two things together, I think, is really transformative. Obviously, the quality of the internet is great. There's no questions on that front. But I think the thing that Germany has to contribute most to this conversation is questions of privacy and surveillance. And within this past year, this has come up more than ever. You know, when I arrived in Germany, it was spring 2010. And just a few months later, many people may remember, this was when Google Street View had first arrived in Germany. And, you know, I was a new immigrant to Germany. I didn't know German society that well, but as a journalist, I found myself writing about Google Street View practically every week for that whole summer, you know, and I saw that Angela Merkel and all German politicians practically were bending over backwards to give their opinion and their commentary on Google Street View and how it was terrible or how it wasn't terrible. I remember there was a tiny town in Bavaria called Oberstaufen that loved Google Street View, that they thought it was great for tourism. They thought that Google Street View was wonderful to bring tourists to see how great their town was. And Google, as you may remember, took the unusual step of allowing Germans to blur their house. So you could go to a special website and type in your address and blur your house. And I thought this was sort of weird, because I heard from a lot of people saying, oh, I don't trust Google. They're this weird American company. Who knows what they're doing with our data, all this kind of stuff. But then I thought, well, if you don't trust Google, then why would you go to a website and give Google your name and your address? Why would you trust it then after that? So exactly. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I thought that the reasoning was valid. You know, Germany obviously has had a very complicated history over the 20th century, particularly having to do with privacy and surveillance, of course, from both the Nazi era and from the era in East Germany. And I think that it's the sort of German privacy mentality and this sort of data protection laws that have been enshrined in Germany since the 1970s, which is amazing to me, I think is really something that can and should be a standard both in Europe and in the world at large, especially here in the US. I mean, so something that I've been writing about a lot lately is a technology that's called license plate readers. In the UK, they're called number plate readers. They're these specialized cameras. I don't know if they exist in Germany. They probably do. There are these specialized cameras that are on police cars, and what they do is they scan license plates, number plates, very, very fast, right? So typically 60 plates per second. And they scan those plates and they check them against the database of stolen cars or wanted cars. And here in the US, more and more police departments are getting them, even small towns, not just big cities like New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco, but even small towns. Where I live here, the police have them. And one of the things that has been difficult for me as a journalist is I'm trying to learn how these license plate readers are being used by different police agencies around my region, around here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And one of the things that I've done is I've filed what are called public records requests. So I've written to these police agencies and I say, okay, can you please tell me if you have any records on my car? And here is my license plate number. And in some cases, they write back and they say, no, we refuse to tell you because we don't think that we have to tell you. We think that this is part of an investigatory file, so we don't have to give you this information. And living in Germany, I'm familiar with this concept of what I think is generally called habeas data, right? The idea that you have to produce the data of somebody, right? Not only for public agencies, not only for police and other government agencies, but companies as well. All Germans have the right to write to Deutsche Telekom and say, hey, please give me my data. I want to see what you have. and you have the right to edit it and delete it as necessary, is my understanding. And you also have the right to do that for any government agency. And this is a right that we do not have here in the United States. And I think that this really changes sort of the balance of power when individuals want to sort of check to see that their data is being used or hopefully not misused, right? And I think that this speaks to a real difference, I think, in the way that Germany and German society, generally speaking, thinks about how privacy should work versus how we think about how privacy should work here in the US. I think the Street View is a good example, right? Here, companies like Google and others, I think generally take the position that we can do whatever we want until somebody tells us to stop, right? Until we get sued, until we get fined, until something happens. Google never asked permission to do Google Street View. Google never asked permission to send out its robot cars all over the place. I would imagine if Google had been a German company or had started as a German company, it would be very different, right? They would have to go to the data protection agency in different states or the federal data protection agency and ask, can we take pictures of every house in Germany? Can we do this? Can we send robot cars driving on the Autobahn or whatever? And I think that that's just a very different mentality. I don't know that one is necessarily better than the other one. I think that sometimes here in the US, we don't generally think of the consequences, I think maybe in ways that maybe German politicians or legal scholars or ordinary German citizens might think about them. And I think that it's important for us here in the US to think about that balance and to understand what maybe our responsibility is, when we're developing these types of technologies. I was only in Germany for 2 years. I was only in a small corner of the country. I was working for a big government media organization, Deutsche Welle. So maybe my experience is a bit different than other people that may live in other cities or work in other types of environments. But I think, if there's one thing that really comes through in the experience of Silicon Valley startups, of California companies in particular, is this idea that it's okay to fail, and it's okay to try new things, and it's okay to allow people the autonomy to explore new types of things. One thing that I experienced working for a large media organization is that there was just a lot of bureaucracy, right? There's a hierarchy of people. Only certain people had certain powers and certain responsibilities. And me, as somebody who was relatively new to the organization, who had not been there a long time, I didn't really feel like I had the power to ask for new things or to try new things. I mean, something as basic as starting a blog for my technology radio show at Deutsche Welle was like pulling teeth. It was very, very difficult for them to do that. And when they finally did it, they wouldn't even allow me to access the statistics to find out how many readers my blog had or to access the analytics or anything like that, because they felt that that should only be controlled by other people in another department, and I couldn't have access to that. So I don't know if that's true in other large companies or other large organizations elsewhere in Germany. Yes. That was something that I found was a little bit frustrating in my experience. And no country is perfect, no culture, no organization is perfect. But I think that is something that we do generally do pretty well here in the US, sometimes with bad consequences, is that we do have this sort of spirit of, let's try it out. I mean, at my current job in Ars Technica, I'm able to explore all kinds of topics. I'm able to learn about, not only write what I want, but to explore, maybe it makes more sense to do a particular story in a video format or to use a certain type of graphic, or maybe I need to spend a little extra money to get some public records or whatever else. And my colleagues have no problem with that at all. Whereas I feel like that would have been a little bit harder for me to do at an organization like Deutsche Welle. But again, I work now in a much smaller organization. I only have, immediately 20 or so colleagues. whereas Deutsche Welle much more broadly had many, many more people. So that was something that I experienced. Well, I would say that the conclusions that I drew are that we as Americans especially need to do a better job of understanding what's going on technologically speaking around the world. We need to look to countries like South Korea, Estonia, Germany, and many others. I feel like if you spend just a few minutes doing some sort of basic research, you can come up with some pretty surprising results. I mean, a good example that I didn't include in the book is in East Africa, in Tanzania and Kenya. A lot of people use essentially cell phone credit as a way to send money back and forth. So just like how many people I had when I was in Germany have prepaid cell phones where they pay a few euros to send a text message or make a phone call or whatever, you can use that essentially as cash. So imagine sending money to your friend across the country in Dresden, and you send him a text message for 5 euros, and he walks up to a kiosk and shows his phone, and then the clerk hands him 5 euros. That would be amazing if you could send money that way. And this is what people are doing in Kenya and Tanzania. This is a service that I wish I could use here, to have sort of this digital currency in a way that can easily be converted from cell phone credit to actual cash. And that's something that I feel like, here in the US that we just have no concept of generally. There's a few people that maybe have read about it or have experienced it because they've traveled there, but by and large, I think most people don't know about this. I think that, cell phones are another good example. In Germany, you're lucky, like in many countries in Europe, to have lots of cell phone choice. I know maybe you have your own gripes with Deutsche Telekom or whatever provider you may have, but by and large, I found that there was a lot of competition, especially amongst the MVNOs, the sort of off-brand providers like Blau. That was the one that I used when I was there, but I know there's lots of other choices. It was so interesting to me when I first arrived, reading through these websites and reading the reviews of people's opinions of different companies. And here in the US, we really don't have such choice, and it's much harder to move from one provider to another. I think that here in the US, we're just not aware that, frankly, we're getting ripped off by our mobile providers here. And maybe you feel like you're getting ripped off in Germany by your provider. But I can guarantee you, I would prefer any German provider any day over the provider that I have here, just because I paid so much less. And you have this prepaid system that is so common in not only Europe, but in practically every other country in the world, this sort of debit system. Whereas here in the US, for a long time, we had this kind of contract situation. And that's starting to change. But what I really want is to have the same kind of service that I had in Germany here in the US. I want to be able to debit down and pay for just what I use rather than pay some large amount, even though I may not be using my phone very much. So I think that all of that is to say that it's important to look to other countries and understand how they do business and how they do things, as basic as how you move money, as basic as how you use your cell phone, as basic as, is your Wi-Fi free or not, and is it easy to access? And then, later on, you can get into more complicated things like national elections and, Skype and whatever else. But I think that just being aware of what's happening in other countries, for me, was really the takeaway here, and was the most important thing that I learned. And also understanding, how and why culture can play a role and history can play a role in how these things develop, I think that there's a good reason why people in Germany were more skeptical of Google Street View than we were here in California. We obviously have had different histories and have experienced different things as a community, as a culture, and that plays to what we value or don't value when it comes to privacy and all the rest. Well, thank you everyone for watching. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I know it's a little bit hard when we're talking over Skype, over a delayed conversation, but I'm glad that I could participate in some small way, and maybe one of these days I'll actually show up in person.
We will now try to set up a Skype call with him to maybe ask 1 or 2 questions. So please bear with that if that would work. Usually the network connection isn't that big enough for many things, but it should be. Live. Yeah, it's live. Of course, we are live. So let's see what will we get. Nobody couldn't read your password. So if this would be Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that would be the telephone joker who didn't answer the call. So no million for you. Okay. So would you like to give it one more try?
Yeah.
One more try. One more try. So maybe he's still at breakfast or something like that? Depends. Yeah, the internet is the faulty thing in this, yes. Okay, as you can see, it seems not to work, so sad. At least we give it a try. Oh.
Hi, it's my Skype voicemail. Please leave me a message. Thank you.
It's just a voicemail. So this is Webmontag Frankfurt. We all say hi to you. You didn't answer, but your mailbox did. So hopefully you can hear us. We would like to ask you some questions in person, but it's not available. So let's say thanks for your time.
Is he back?
Huh? No, I don't think so. No. Okay. Okay, so as you see, we at least tried it. Didn't work that good, but at least it worked a little. Yeah, if you have still some questions, we will forward them.
Yes, actually, Jürgen, would you like to come over? Because you have read the book. Everyone, please give it up for Jürgen.
Can see him? Huh?
Jürgen.
Oh.
Okay.
So maybe we will not disturb him. Maybe the pressure will keep him away from us. So yeah, I think
obviously the online world and the offline world have same problems sometimes, accessing people. Also, if anyone has questions for me, I would try it because I've researched a bit about the stuff. So go for it.
So questions? Oh, one. Wow.
One point I found very interesting is voting over the internet. We don't have that in Germany. I know that in places like in Venezuela, they had it for 15 years, which makes it very comfortable to kind of arrange the result in a way you want to have it. Don't you see, or doesn't he see a problem with that?
So there are two parts to that. The first one is the first thing we learn about the Internet of Elsewhere is that it's not only a technological thing, it's also a cultural thing. So it's also about understanding how the culture works, how we value stuff, privacy, for example, and how the participation in different countries is different. Regarding the technology, the way the Estonians work for that is it's optional. And the way it is if, for example, next Sunday is the voting event date, whatever deadline, you are able to vote as often as you want until Sunday, and your last vote will count. And the other thing is, if you're not, if you change your mind and want to go for real vote, offline vote, I'm sorry, then you can do that. So that's okay. And the other thing is that if they have a feeling that their voting system has been corrupted or manipulated, they are able to not count the votes and make sure that you go for votes. So this is something that works right now this way in Estonia, and probably every country is going to have to find out for themselves how they're going to do that. Did I answer your question?
Kind of. You put in some new aspects which I didn't think before. But the thing is, well, of course it's a cultural thing, and as in Germany we're very skeptical about these things. We hear about many places, you know, where electronic voting, internet voting has been around for many, many years. And then these are often places where, you know, you have results of 98% for something, and you wonder if it makes easier to give your vote away and have no clue what happens with it in an electronic cloud or whatsoever.
If I may just jump in for a short comment. As long as I live in a country where I need to change the law to say this is something like the email, yeah, we make it secure by law, because we define it, this is secure right now. Even if you mention it isn't secure and you have technical audits being done on these systems which clearly show it isn't secure at all, I wouldn't recommend to establish electronic votings in this country, sorry.
Anyone else?
So if there are no more questions, we are finally on the closing way. So there are a couple of things to mention. Of course, our sponsors. You did it? I did it? I have to... Oh, okay. Okay. So, of course, we need to mention our sponsors. Last but not least, the broad fabric you're sitting right into. So, without them, you wouldn't probably sit in the free outside somewhere. Yeah, it probably would be nice if the weather is nice, but maybe it rains or something like that. So they are important. We also have the rest of our sponsors, which is the D-Kicks, for example, which is the biggest internet connection point here in Europe. We have Hayes. They doing some recruitment and stuff like that. They also have some job offers hanging around outside, I think, and they also sponsor the USB sticks. So if you need 2 GB USB sticks, feel free to grab one if there is at least one left. We have DMR Solutions, yeah, quite a local provider which supports us for a long time right now. Also Avago, and of course the Decentrale, the co-working space here in Frankfurt, which is also Decentrale for the Webmontag team, where we usually have our team meetings and stuff like that. We have some upcoming events this month, so if you have some free time, there is this, I forgot the name, it's a Society for News Design. They try to, yeah, rethink about how news has to be designed, how news has to be published and stuff like that to reach people. So this is a 2 days, I think, yeah, it was 2 days conference in September this year. So if you're interested in news and all around this, you probably may want to join them. Of course, our partners from Offenbach. They have a Webmontag in, I think it's 2 weeks right now, yeah? Yeah, right. It's in 2 weeks, so if you want to have a little more smaller Webmontag or push them a little with your talks, feel free. They always look for speakers, sorry. Join them. It's pretty nice, and it's usually in German, so don't need to worry. Yeah, maybe in Hessisch. Right, forgot that, sorry. And of course our next Webmontag, which is in at least 1 month, with the nice topic bei Risiken und Nebenwirkungen. Maybe you want to join for some Risiken und Nebenwirkungen announcements, or Do we still need some talks? I think so, right?
It's going to be primarily Health 2.0 stuff. So we'll see.
Health 2.0, so yes. So if you want to join or if you have a talk for that, feel free to submit it. Yeah, sorry, was quicker than the papers. And if you want news about the Webmontags coming up, join the newsletter where we send out once a month, so it wouldn't bug you too much, hopefully. If so, please contact us. Yeah, and of course, our survey, it's still open. We need your feedback, we want your feedback, and we want you to join the next Web Monday. I think that was it from our side. So if you have any questions to the speakers, some of them are still available. Just try to reach them. If you don't reach them, try to contact us. And if you're happy, join Twitter and stuff like that and publish how happy you are. Otherwise, we were looking forward to see you next month. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the evening, and I would like to give you a warm goodbye, and hopefully you get a good ride home, maybe with the Uber.